This is Jordan Edwards, and this is the Business Jiu-Jitsu Podcast.
Good afternoon. I'm here with Chris Martinez, and you may not know his face, but if you listen to this podcast, you almost certainly know his company, Phalanx Jiu-Jitsu. And your company is undoubtedly one of the leaders in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gear and apparel. And I'm extremely excited to talk to you today. Thank you so much for being on the Business Jiu-Jitsu Podcast.
I'm very happy to be here, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're a good candidate for someone to be involved with this project, as someone who's, dedicated your life and career to not only the sport that we love, but also building a business around it.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is how I got started. Actually, my license on my car, the license plate says No Gi because of what it's given to me. And yeah, before starting Phalanx, I was working at a dead-end job. I was so unhappy, and I was the guy that hated Monday through Thursday, half of Friday, and half of Sunday because it was close to Monday. And so I went from that guy to, where I am now. I have a couple companies, but it all started from there.
Well, it sounds like you're a little bit like me. I'm lucky that I always love what I do, but to me, it's not Monday. It's just no gi at 6:30, gi at 6:30, gi at 8:30. It just the day is just when I get to jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
So take us back. Where are you from?
Born and raised in Northern California, a little small town called Placerville that probably none of your listeners have heard of. And then I made my way down to San Diego at one point, and I was going to college there, graduated, got a job, worked in a cubicle. That was the thing I was telling you about. But I actually started doing jiu-jitsu a really long time ago. But I'm one of those, I'm taking the long way to black belt. I'm the guy that goes once or twice a week tops, but has not stopped since I started 10 years ago, or more. So, I basically came from there, made my way to San Diego, and that's where I really started to grow and turn Phalanx into something real.
So Phalanx is about 10 years old?
Phalanx was founded in 2011, so we're a little older than that. And at the time, I was living in Huntington Beach, California, and I was working that dead-end job I mentioned. And I loved jiu-jitsu. And at the time, I was just doing gi. And I thought, this was a long time ago, you have to keep in mind. This is 2011. Like, stuff's changed since then. But back then, you had a competition jacket, and you had like more of a judo-style jacket. And then that was it. There wasn't all these different cuts and all that. And then there was the pants, and the pants were these terrible tubular cinch into them type things. And so what I decided to do was like, well, I love jiu-jitsu. I think I could make a better gi, but the jacket's pretty good. So I'm just going to start with the pants because those have never been evolved. And so I actually bought a sewing machine. I learned how to use it on YouTube. I went to Joann's Fabric and I bought a bunch of stuff. And then I just started making things, and I took all my existing products that I just bought, and I took all of the thread out one at a time so I could see the actual panels. And then I just stapled them to my wall all over my apartment. I was single. I could just do whatever. So all over my apartment, I just kind of studied them because I had zero background in fashion patterns, none of that. My background is in geology. It's in science and physics. That's nothing to do with it. And so that's when I just started to make them. I made my own pair of gi pants. And a couple iterations later, I ended up with one pair. And they're just, I love them. I love them so much. I got rid of the drawstring thing. I put an elastic waistband there. I got the seams go down the legs. There's articulation in the leg. So they're made to be bent. The gi pants are bent like motorcycle pants. So it was built that way because when do you have your legs straight besides getting knee barred and standing at attention at the end? You're never have your legs straight. So I built the pants to be that way. And then I tweaked the gusset on it and I did all these things and I put a lot of work into it. And then what ended up happening was I got a pair to Eddie Bravo and he flipped out over them. He was like, oh my God. He ended up going to a seminar and then he was wearing those pants. And I was like, hey, how you liking them pants? He's like, oh, that's you? You made these? He's like, these are $1 million gi pants. Well, that's what kind of got me on the map with 10th Planet. I was also training at a 10th Planet. And since Eddie had only wears gi pants, he doesn't really wear shorts. He's a gi pants guy. So I just knew that even though I made these gi pants and it's more of the gi world, Eddie would be a cool dude. And I was a 10th Planet guy. So it ended up getting to him. And then he ended up saying a lot of beautiful things about it. And I was able to sell them for a little while. But I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about business. And so those pants were they were never going to make it. Now that when I look back on it, because of the level of construction involved, how they were just so expensive. I mean, he called $1 million gi pants, but for me to actually make a profit on them, I'd probably have to sell them for like $300. Granted, there's people who DM me to this day who still have those from 10 years ago when I was selling them, and they're still rocking them. So they're bulletproof, probably worth a couple $100, but it just was a kind of not going to work. So I started to change and evolve from there. But that was the inception point.
That was the moment of alchemy, the spark of innovation. I always call it in my business is when you have that moment of, no return, or like, I got to be a business. So you basically were a scientist, and you just like I think Matt Damon in that movie where he's in Mars, he's like, I'm just going to science the shit out of this. And he just like takes over. So you just science the shit out of gi pants, and like, I'm going to build better gi pants.
Yeah. And then I did the same thing with rash guards. I didn't like how it was choking me. I didn't like how crappy they were. And so I did the same exact thing. I found my own material. And so I just kept going and going. And so, I'm not really good at inventing things, but I'm extremely good at making things better.
That's it. Well, we have a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to do my best to remember everything. But I kind of want to just take it back to the beginning for 1 second. Point of clarification. So you were training in the gi at 10th Planet, or you started somewhere and then went to a different gym? Yeah.
So I was at a gym. I don't want to say the name because I was not a good experience.
Okay.
At that gym. There's, we can get into some of what I've learned there. So I was training in the gym, and I was doing all gi, and I was doing that for probably 2 years or so. And then I was watching, you know what it was? I was watching Joe Rogan and Eddie Bravo on some old website called Justin TV.
Sure.
Back in 2010 or 2011. And Eddie was talking about jiu-jitsu, and I was like, man, this sounds cool. I'd never really done no gi.
Yeah.
And so I did one no gi class at that existing gym. They only had one no gi class a week. And again, you have to keep in mind, this was 11 years ago. No gi was not really even respected back then. And I was in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym, very proud gym. So they were just like, yeah, we'll do no gi, but you got to do the gi. And so I loved it. And then I'm watching these things with Eddie, and I'm like, maybe I'll go try them out. And so 10th Planet Costa Mesa had just opened. And so I just decided, well, I'll go check them out. And I went down there, and the moment I walked in, there was music playing. People were having a good time. The head instructor, at the time, his name is Casey Halstead. He jumped off the mat. I have no idea who I was. Just some dude walks in, jumps off the mat, comes over to me, introduces himself, very gregarious and warming, and then invites me onto the mat and says, let's figure out where your no gi's at. You've been doing gi for so long. Let's figure it out. And it was such a beautiful experience being just welcomed in as a stranger. And I loved it so much that I just I think I just want to do no gi. And since then, since that 2011, I've only done no gi, except for occasional times. Some of my buddies will make me put on a gi just to tune me up. But in general, all I'm into is no gi. I respect the hell out of gi. I have tremendous respect for it, but my passion is no gi.
Wow. Well, we started around the same time. I started in 2009. I became aware of jiu-jitsu around 2005 with the Ultimate Fighter show. And I don't even think that at that time it was like settled that it would be called MMA, mixed martial arts. Like I remember when I was in college up in Boston, I was still going to NHB shows, No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
And the event wasn't promoted as a mixed martial arts fight, it was promoted as an NHB fight. And there were all these little clothing brands trying to get it. There was one called Victory, where they spelled it VIKO, and KO was big in the middle, and then Turi. And then, so there was like all that was what's happening. And then when I graduated, I stepped on the mat to do jujitsu, and we had to wear the Fuji uniform. Fuji kimono, gi, no patches. One night I came in with an American flag patch stitched to my arm, and my professor, who's still my sensei to this day, he pulled me to the side and he said, "I'm going to let this slide because it's American flag patch, but no other patches, no other thing, Fuji." And at the time, you only really get mixed martial arts gear. Hayabusa started to come out with some things, and I remember I bought the very first pair of Fuji No Gi grappling shorts. They were royal blue. And this was like a revolution. And we weren't even allowed to do no gi until we got our blue belts at the time.
Oh.
So I don't even think I did my first no gi class probably until, so that was right around when you got probably like, 2010, 2011 in that frame.
Yeah.
And I would scour the internet for anything that was jujitsu gear, anything I could find that was jujitsu. And there was basically very, very little. And what was interesting about that time, and any of my teammates and my sensei who were around from that era, is like we all had the exact same gear because that was all there was.
Mm-hmm.
Hayabusa made one rash guard at the time.
Yeah.
Just one jujitsu rash guard. Fuji made one rash guard, one pair of shorts. And so those early days, there was really not much. And just, what I'm building to here is that Hayabusa came out with like a pair of just gi pants at the time that had a little clipping belt on it, but they were like,
I remember that.
They were way too big. They didn't fit.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, they came out with those. That was a long time ago. I had to dust that off.
And so those were like the early days of YouTube existed, but it was not prolific, and nobody who was posting YouTube videos. As a matter of fact, my sensei used to say, "Don't watch YouTube. There's only junk on there." And it's amazing how the world has changed in all these years. So
I love it. I love where it is now, and I feel like we're still growing. I started to notice. So when I started Phalanx of doing all jujitsu stuff and gis, all that, but then when I fell in love with no gi, I decided to just do no gi. But the big reason was I felt like I was losing touch with the gi game, because the longer I was doing no gi, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, the gi, it just kept, they were evolving so much. And so I thought, I don't feel very confident that I could put out a good gi, because I have a tiny group of assistants and me. There was nobody else in Phalanx, and no one here is doing gi. So I actually waited. I was like, I'm not going to put out a gi if it isn't going to be awesome. Like, I care so much about that. But it was Metamoris, early Metamoris. I was watching those. This was before all those guys. It was Metamoris. And the first Metamoris was like all these gi events and then one no gi event. And then the second Metamoris was like half gi and half no gi. And then the third or fourth one or whatever was like all no gi and one or two gi at the end. And that's when I realized, I was like, I think no gi is going to get a lot bigger, because look at the market is watching this. They're adjusting to the market. And then when the UFC signed a deal with Reebok, that's when I also was like, ooh, no gi is going to be big, because it's a huge component of MMA is no gi jiu-jitsu. Now, you can say gi and all that. I'm not going to get into that, but jiu-jitsu in general is a big part of it. And so when I started seeing these things on the wall with Reebok and with the events, the tournaments becoming more about no gi, because it's a little bit faster. It's a little bit, you don't have to be as intelligent with jiu-jitsu to kind of understand what's happening with it. And then my own personal training and not having the confidence in bringing out a gi. That's why we did no gi for so long until now. Right now, actually, we've been developing a gi for probably the last 8 months, and we were close to launching it. I still pulled it back because we weren't ready. And the reason is because I've got a plethora of people who do gi now that work for me. And they basically were revolting. Like, This needs to happen. It's like, all right, well, now I'm cool because you guys are confident in the quality that I expect and what we're going to bring out, and you're going to be testing it. And so I have this gi, and I fired it off to a couple black belts and brown belts, one of which is a gentleman named Croyler Gracie. And that kid was literally born in a gi. And so what better way to get testing? So I'm in the testing phase now where I've got some black belt savages out there who are beating them down and reporting back. And then we're making adjustments. And then, once we launch, we're never going to stop because we've dabbled here and there. But once we do this next one, we're going to just go forever. And it's because we built the confidence that I know we can put out a good quality product now. And I would rather not drop a gi and lose potential revenue, but also maybe tarnish the reputation. So I just waited until the next few months from now.
Well, now I know where this conversation is going to end. But before we get to the new arrivals, I need to hear a little bit more about how the business formed. So you make these gi pants. They're a big hit. You get them into the hands of some 10th Planet guys. Eddie Bravo's loving it.
Yeah.
You love no gi, so you start making no gi gear. You're looking at Metamoris. When do you know that this is a business? Like, when do you have a real? When can you leave your full-time job to go pursue this?
Oh, that took a long time. That took a while, man. It's so much easier now for these younger people who are doing it. Back then, it was hard. There wasn't. Alibaba. I don't even know if it was there yet. It might have. I don't know because I wasn't even using them yet, but. So it took me years, but if I look back now, I could have done it faster, but it took me, as an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. That's the only way. That's it. You have to take risks, measured risks. I lean a little more towards measuring a little bit better than most people, where someone like a Gary V is just go, 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 go and deal with it later. I measure a little more. So it probably took me a little bit longer, but I was living real lean in the beginning. I would wake up in the morning and I'd work on Phalanx. I'd go to my work. I'd sit at my cubicle. I'd work all until lunch. I would drive home at lunch because I was about 10 minutes from my house. I'd work on Phalanx during my whole lunch hour. Then I'd go back to the office and then I would eat at my desk while I was working the last half of my shift. Then I would get off work and I'd go home and I'd work on Phalanx. And I did that probably for 2 solid years. 7 days a week, no vacation, nothing, just grinding and just doing it. And then it started to make a little bit more money. And then I was able to.
One-man army, just you?
It was me. I did have a partner at one point. We were working together a little bit, but as far as the inside of Phalanx, building Phalanx, not talking about any outside like connections or making acquaintances and relationships. If you're just talking about building this thing, making the stuff, designing the stuff, shipping the stuff, printing, cutting, all of that was definitely, that was just me. Wow. I don't wish it on anybody to go start an apparel company where you're doing the sewing, the customer service, the graphic design, the marketing, the sales, the CFO, the CEO. I don't wish it on anybody, but that's how it was for a while. And then I started to hire certain assistants and so forth. And that's where everything came from there, in my opinion, for where I'm at in life. It came from those moments of realizing that I need to bring on a team, and then how I've figured out how to get the right team players, and then also having some very bad team players and working through that and dealing with what that's like and coming out on the other side and rewarding great behavior, removing the people who are no good. That's literally where it all came from. And then over time, I just made more and more and more, but I had to take a massive pay cut in the beginning because I just wanted to be home working more. So whatever I just needed for bare bones life is what I ended up doing, quitting the day job. I cashed out my 401k. I went all in, brother. I took all of the things that institution has built to keep me there, to keep investing. And I cashed and I paid all those fees and all that stuff. And then I went all in on me. And it was very hard, very rough times in the beginning, but you never get to see those things. but that's the only reason that it happened, I think, is because I went all in.
I have so many things to say off that. You said so much. One about risk, two about going all in, three about there's so many things to unpack, you know. Oh, and then what I was going to ask you about being from a family. Are you from a family of entrepreneurs? But don't answer that just yet. Talk to me about risk. When John Danaher was on this podcast, he told a story about meeting Bernard Hopkins at the backstage of a fight. And what he said is that when are you taking the most risk? Like, when are you the most vulnerable? And what he said was, it's actually not when you're in defense covered up. It's when you're on the attack. You know, when you extend yourself out to be the punch is at the moment when you're actually the most vulnerable. And that observation has been one of my greatest insights in business, of taking risk and learning how to take measured risk and learning how to look for asymmetric risk, where the rewards could be much bigger than what I'm actually risking. And so I'm just interested on your relationship with risk. That's why I wanted to ask if you're from a family of entrepreneurs. What's your background?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm from a proud family of hardworking, blue collar. Let's get it done. Let's freaking just workhorses. I come from a family of plow horses that will work harder than anybody, but not necessarily business owners or entrepreneurs.
What do you think gave you the confidence and that, F it, I'm going to go leave my desk job to go do? Was it because you were so miserable, or is it like what?
Okay. Yeah. So one, my family weren't entrepreneurs, but I was connected to another family because I had a best friend, and he and I met when we were very young. And so I was connected to this other family, and I spent a lot of time over there, and his dad was an entrepreneur. And I at this small town that I was in, where everybody just had trades and did, little stuff. Here's this guy that's bigger than life. He's like larger than life. He owns his own business. It was unheard of to me. And he had a license plate frame that said, "I love my job. I love my boss. I'm self-employed." And on all those things like imprinted on me. And as a kid, I didn't realize what he was doing, but what he was really doing was shaping my own destiny. Because I don't work. I don't like working for people. I don't like being told what to do. I just don't. And so he was a entrepreneurial model in my life that I was very close to, and an older gentleman. And to this day, I'm still very close to him and still get a lot of wisdom from that guy. So the entrepreneurial seed was in there, not directly from my family, but I was connected to it in a way.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to dissect, because I coach and mentor a lot of young people who want to be businesses. By the way, I didn't mention this, and I don't know if you know this, but one of the companies that I own is called Mixology Clothing Company. I have 15 brick and mortar retail stores. I have an e-commerce website. We have 350 employees. Like, we have a pretty nice sized clothing business ourselves.
Congrats.
And thank you. And so everything you're saying is I'm very, very in tune with. I apologize that I didn't give you that frame of reference. But while we were building the business, there have been crazy, crazy moments of grit to just make this business happen to especially what it is today, from one store, our seed of innovation.
Yeah.
But my father was an entrepreneur, and my grandfather was an entrepreneur, and my great grandparents came to this country with a suitcase and risked everything that they had.
Yeah.
Escaping Europe from pogroms and crazy, death. And they showed up to this country and they were tailors, and they owned a laundromat. And so it was like ingrained in me from the time that I was born. All I knew was entrepreneurship. And so occasionally when I'm coaching and mentoring young people, and they come to me with some kind of business idea, and I ask them about their background, they're so fearful to take a risk.
Yes.
That they didn't have anybody. They don't, like you said, they don't even know anybody besides me, maybe, who's a business owner. Their parents were doctors or teachers or garbage men or just anything. And it's so foreign to them. They don't know it unless they watch Shark Tank, which by the way is a great peek into the business world. So I'm always fascinated, like people like yourself who are able to take this extreme risk to go after what they want. And what I'm getting at here is I'm straight up asking you, how much was jujitsu potentially an influence in that?
So jujitsu, here's the influence in jujitsu as it went to business. So when I mentioned 2011, when it was born, it was not my first business. I started a business, number one, and then that business failed. I started a business number two, and then that business failed. I started a business number three, and I got some momentum, and that business failed.
Wow.
3 failures. I failed 3 times in a row. Invested my own money, my own time. I'm building. I'm doing all these things. Fail, fail, fail. And then the 4th business didn't or hasn't, because you're never really free. So I never say didn't fail, because that to me sounds like you think you've made it. No, it just hasn't failed yet. It's just been around for 11 years. And then that one worked. And then another one worked. And then another one worked. And so if I were to quit after the 1st, the 2nd, or the 3rd, I would still be in that cubicle that I told you I was so unhappy with. So what got me to do that was it became an absolute must in my life. I was no longer going to just sit there doing the same. If I do the same week every week, then that means I'm doing the same month every month. And if I'm doing the same month every month, that means the same year. And therefore I'm living the same life in the same week. It was terrifying to me. There was no option. So like they say, you want to take the islands, burn the boats. I burned my boats. I cashed out everything and I went all in. And it's because there's no way I was going to go work for that asshole and those people and that dead end thing. I had to get out. I had to, and I would do whatever it takes to get out. And I still feel that way today. If something were to happen and I go to rock bottom again, I don't care. I know I'm going to get out. I don't know how. And so the risk is, what is the downside? The downside of the risk to me was an entire life of being unhappy. And I only have one life. So there's no risk that's or not worth doing if you frame it that way. And then how did jujitsu play? Well, like I had said, the first business it was a couple failures, then was the jujitsu one. But I had another jujitsu one upstream from that. It just had failed. So I just knew, and I looked around me, and so I do private clients too. I coach people. I've got to a place where I'm so happy, and I've discovered what my real true passion in life is. And so when I coach people, my thing is just look around you, and what are you loving? What are you into that you love to do? And try to go do something in that. You know, they say like, well, you don't have to be passionate about your business. You definitely don't. But if you're a nobody and you're trying to build up from nothing, the easiest way to have the momentum behind you emotionally is if it's something that you're into, because then you're going to show up for it. You're not just trying to make a crypto $1 million company. It's, no, dude, I freaking love jujitsu. So I'm getting after it and I'm designing and I'm observing, I'm making things, I'm talking to people, I'm getting into it. Find what you're getting into. I just happen to be into jujitsu. And at that time, you know, this gets a little solemn, but, you know, my dad had passed away and it was a very urgent thing. And I was rocked by it and I'm living by myself and I'm not really sure what to do. But when I was kind of going through the worst part about it, the one thing I never stopped doing was jujitsu. You know, I'd get depressed and I would I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do these things. I'm sad. But for some reason, I always went there. And so I just knew that I have such a deep love for jujitsu that I could probably find a business in here. And then I just looked at what I was wearing. I hated what I was wearing, and I decided I'm going to go make it better. And then there's the story about the sewing machine.
Wow. I'm going to summarize everything you just said is work is a gift from God. You know, you just have to love to work hard. That's it. It doesn't matter what you're working on. I really don't know much about women's clothing, to be quite frank with you, even though I'm the CEO of a pretty large, medium-sized women's clothing business. My sister is the expert on women's clothing. All of my background is in commercial real estate, building, you know, construction, building, leasing, working with tenants. We happen to make a really good team for growing out of business in that sense. Mm-hmm. But from the time that I was little, I always had jobs, caddying, you know, catering, just working, making money, and that became the thing that I really loved, was just the fulfillment of working. And then my experience with risk, because as I'm not a natural risk taker, I'm a natural entrepreneur.
Neither
I
am
love
I.
business,
Yeah.
not a natural risk taker.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu taught me to appreciate risk. Jiu-Jitsu taught me to appreciate the hard work, showing up night after night after night, not being the best, always being humbled, always getting tapped, always getting sweat dripped all over me. You know, it's a very humbling thing. And as I was growing my businesses and becoming more and more and more successful financially, you ain't shit when you're getting tapped out after that at the end of the night. You know, you just have to show up again and again and again.
That's
Yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak to about 100 specialty retailers. I was a panelist on a webinar for omni-channel retail. And the average attendee of this seminar is someone who owns a store who hasn't yet launched a website. It's like, how could it be 2022 and you still don't have a website? And so these people are very interested, but they've either tried to have a website and it failed, or they're a little bit older and they don't necessarily understand the technology, or they're a fashion person and they're not a technology person and they're so fearful. And so one of the questions that was posed to me was, you know, how do you do this if you're not the business and you're not a technical person? I said, do you think Mixology, that's my company, was successful our first time out? Just like you. I had tonercentral.com that was an epic failure before. Mixology was on the balls of its ass so many times where we just had to figure it out.
Yes.
I had 12 bookkeepers before I now had, but you know, he was my controller.
Yes.
And now he's my CFO. But for over 3 years, I had 12 bookkeepers.
Yeah.
I had one of those guys, he sent a $26,000 check twice out to a company when we needed that $26,000.
Yeah.
We're like, where is our money?
Yeah. How about this? Yeah. I still don't have a bookkeeper because I haven't found what I like. So we're still looking.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so the reason why I love telling these stories and I love hearing your story is because so many people don't know this. They just look at what you have. They go to your website, Phalanx. Oh my God, look at the Eddie Bravo's wearing this. He must have all of his shit together. It must have always been perfect. But all of my greatest moments have been on the heels of solving some catastrophic problem at some catastrophic time. Hurricane Sandy here on the East Coast. COVID was insane for us. The New York State government, at the time I had 10 stores, made me send home 170 employees furloughed. And we had 30 employees left and we had to keep this business alive. And so I'm interested. The reason why I bring that up is because I'm not sure if you remember this, but the first time that I reached out to you was during COVID. And I said, hey, you want to be on the podcast? I was restarting it. And you're like, I am in saving my business mode. Mm-hmm. And so I would love to know, like, what was COVID like for Phalanx?
It's what you say about risk taking, measured risks, and then just having you just have to just keep getting back up. I put together a post that I'm going to do, and I've been doing more private clients, and I'm getting a lot better at teaching because of that. And the one thing that I'm recognizing in these young entrepreneurs is they give up. Like, I don't know. Don't say you don't know something because you have Google and YouTube, first of all. And then second, just don't quit. That's the thing. You can hit me, knock me down 1,000,000 times, and I guarantee you I will get back up again. And so that's jujitsu, right? There's nobody that's at purple belt level, blue belt level. Nobody goes to jujitsu because they're fired up to go tap somebody out. You go to jujitsu because of the journey. You're going to get your ass handed to you more often than not throughout that entire journey. And that is exactly what happens in business. You are going to get your ass handed to you more often than not. And so you have to just take it on the chin and keep moving forward. Whereas for me, becoming very exceptional at emotional resiliency and not getting worked up about anything and processing it and making intelligent decisions. So that kind of the philosophy comes from jujitsu is just, hey, if you're coming into jujitsu to be win all the time, it's the wrong place. If you're coming into business because you're just going to win all the time and life is awesome all the time, you're in the wrong place. Because more often than not, bad things are happening, So the philosophy was there. And then I don't remember exactly when it was that you emailed me, because I don't know if it was 2020 or 2021. So there were two separate fires that I was putting out in those 2 years. But I took a big risk, and I put us in a very precarious place because of that. And it was 2020, and I'll try to be quick because I know we don't have a lot of time. I really want to mention something too. So 2020 it's coming, the end of the year. Trump is still around. I don't give a shit about politics, but he was saying things about tariffs on China and doing a lot of things about bringing things to America. And I was thinking, if that guy wins and then he does those things, all my international shipping, I don't know if this. So I was like, I'm not sure what to do here. We've been in this for a whole year. COVID's not going away. So what I decided to do is pack up all of my operations and move it domestically, all of our everything, and move it to warehouse and storage, manufacturing, everything done here in the United States. And that ended up being such an incredible expense month over month. And this is the part that kind of irritates me about when people talk about bringing back jobs is you can bring back the steel mills and stuff, but then you got to make sure people want to work there. And then those people got to show up and they got to be paid well. And it was a total wrong move that I did. And then as 2021 started to emerge, and then, things are opening up, Biden wins, this whole fear of international business seems to slow down. And next thing you know, I'm like, okay, we're getting out of there and we're going back to what we did. And I even used the same term. I used build back better. And I said, listen, I had created a whole project. I said, this is going to be build back better, but we're going to do it for real. Like, we're actually going to do it. We're just going to say we're going to do it. And so I'm actually really pleased to tell you that right now, in the place that we're in, the products, the gis, the bags, some other things I don't want to talk about that are coming in the next year, 10 months, 7 months, we're way beyond where we were in 2019 because of the thing that I did in 2020 that put us in a bad spot. I had to get real creative and I had to work real hard to get us back to where we were. But then we emerged into a better place.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I'm really happy to hear it. My favorite rash guard is the Black Ops rash guard. Right before this podcast started, I went and I saw that you had the Black Ops 2. So yeah. I just scooped up a Black Ops 2. I'll send you a picture of it when I get it. But that's amazing to hear. For me, all of my greatest moments of growth have come on the heels of these crazy things that have happened. While it's happening, it's really hard to get super focused. But the thing about COVID was I had so much kind of wartime CEO experience from Hurricane Sandy and from some other crazy shit that had happened in my career. Tons of lawsuits, tons of just insanity,
Same.
and doing big deals. But while COVID was happening, it was such an epic disaster. Everything was falling down. 600,000 businesses are out of business. 170 of my employees are furloughed. All of my physical stores are closed. And I made a few decisions that turned out to be the best business decisions of my career, in mixology at least. And two of those were, I started looking to open stores while my stores were closed. And I went on a hiring spree. While everybody was saying how hard it was to find people, I was actively recruiting to go pick up all of these incredible people that were furloughed.
Yeah.
And that was specifically and directly in proportion to, my learning from John Danaher on risk and asymmetric risk. And my thinking at the time was, if the whole country's going down, I'm fucked anyway.
Yeah.
Like if my business is going out of business, these people are already furloughed.
Yeah.
And if I'm never going to be able to negotiate a deal like this on rent. So I was out there and I was living on phone and Zoom. And I ended up opening 3 stores on the heels of COVID.
Nice.
And in June we had 1, and then by September I had 2, and then by the end of the year I had 3 right out of 2020 gates. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then you know what happened with the pendulum. The world opened up and everybody wanted to go do everything that they couldn't do while they were locked inside of their houses. And so it was a huge, just like you, it was a huge gamble. It was a huge risk, massive financial risk to myself, building out all those stores and hiring all those people.
Yeah.
But today I have we have 350 employees, but 10 of the people that I was able to go hire and recruit, these are like some of my most trusted and best employees now. And we have an incredible bond because when their companies left them out to dry, and they were like, how the hell, this was before the stimulus check started coming out. Like, how am I going to pay my rent? And I'm calling them like, hey, come work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm paying them during COVID. It was a crazy moment in time. I have other business stories like that, but
I love it. You're right though.
That's jujitsu.
And you were tested. You mentioned how you've had lawsuits, and I've had all that too. I've had to go to court. I've had numerous attorneys trademark this, EDD that. I've had all of that. I've had happy employees that are on top of the world and so grateful to work for me. Yeah. And then I've had employees that, came to my house and tried to break things. And I've had it all, brother. And throughout that, you just get hardened by it. Your exterior gets hardened. My interior doesn't get hardened, but the exterior gets hardened where something comes. It's like, okay, how are we going to figure this out? And you have to get that. So I know a lot of young entrepreneurs listen to your show. You got to develop that early on, and it comes from adversity. So you don't want to shy away from it. You don't want to shy away from telling somebody they're fired by doing it in a text or an email. You don't want to don't make your life any easier. Go head on for whatever that thing is and own it, because the problems that you have in the beginning, and I'm tiny compared to the rest of the world and you, and even past all of that, it only gets worse. The problems only get bigger. So in the beginning, you have to really just accept that I'm always going to have problems, and it's my job to solve them because I'm the boss. Yep. Everything is going to boil down to my responsibility. And so I'm not going to shy away from any of those obstacles. And I'm just going to go over every single one of them. And as I gain more money in a bigger business, they're just going to get bigger and bigger. So I better start now. And you got tested. I didn't have the Katrina. So I was tested on the internal side of Phalanx with all kinds of things going on over the years, with lawsuits and whatnot. So COVID was my first external challenge, and I love it. I love that we went through COVID because of how much my team grew as a team, not like numbers, how strong we are. I mean, I'm so proud of what we have. And I'm just talking specifically of the Phalanx business. Yeah. And it came through measured risks. It came through the journey is the important part, not your money or your cars or any other shit you want to buy. Those are the things that you really got to focus on. And then eventually the traffic kind of opens up, and now you're in a place where fewer people are because there's a traffic jam with everybody who's trying to get started. And then it gets a little bit easier in that way. Problems are bigger, but it's a little smoother, I think. Yeah. Very, very well said. I have a few things pulled up. I know you said you had something you wanted to share before we start to wrap over here, but I did want to share here a few of your business dealings. So first and foremost, phalanxfc.com. Great website, great assortment. I'm a big fan. Love the gear. Here is, I wear it multiple times a week. I mean, I live in my stuff. Hey, you're a big gi guy too, right? Yeah. I do gi and no gi every week. I don't miss. When we get this thing dialed in, I'll give you one to get your honest feedback, but you have to give me your honest feedback. I don't want any lip service. I will give you my honest feedback, and I will purchase it because I always love to support businesses. It's not in my soul to take anything, but if you send me a link to buy it, I will buy it. Fair enough. Phalanx_USA on Instagram. Yeah. And then I love this. I found this on your site and I did not know about this, but you have two programs. One, free cash for your gym. You've got a great program going on for gyms in need. Right now. That's the thing I wanted to elaborate on. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, wow. All right, go for it. So I'm going to leave this up while you talk about it. Yeah. This is it, brother. This is it. This is what gets me up so much. Okay. Phalanx, Jiu-Jitsu brand. Fuji, Jiu-Jitsu brand. Kings, Corral, whatever. What makes you different? Well, I'll tell you what makes us different. And it's not just the pattern development and source products and all of that. And it's not our outstanding customer service, because our customer service is incredible. It's because we give back. Period. End of story. We give back more to the jiu-jitsu culture than any other brand combined. I'm talking, people will hit us up and say, I lost all of my stuff and my car got robbed and I had all my gear in there. And then like, I got you. We'll hook them up. You know, I hear a jiu-jitsu business, a gym, they needed new mats. We bought new mats for them. Like, we've done so much, my friend, to do it. But this is the first time I've actually mobilized people. Wow. Everything has just been us giving and giving and giving. Hundreds of products a year. We're just giving it out there. We've sponsored underprivileged youth programs going all the way back to 2013. I mean, we've done all that, right? But check this one out. That one right there, we're calling it the United We Roll campaign. And what we're doing is we have created a whole set of products, tees, rash guards, spats, whatever. There's a whole collection you can go to for this particular offering. And every single product, there it is. Everything that you buy right there is going to get put into a little bucket. And when that bucket's over, all of the profits from this entire campaign is going to be divvied up, and then I'm going to give it to gyms. It's just going to go, here's money. I haven't figured out which gyms. I haven't figured out how much in each gym, but there's a survey that anybody can fill out where you go nominate your gym for the cash infusion. Yep. And then anybody who actually makes a purchase, they get 4 times the amount of votes. So they're obviously more likely to win. If you're just going and filling out the survey, you can, but your chances are going to be a lot lower, because what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to give money. I'm trying to give back. And the reason for this, Jordan, is that I believe that the jiu-jitsu gym is the most precious but fragile component of our entire industry. Because if there is no jiu-jitsu gym, there is no Gordon Ryan, there's no Gio, there's no Richie. They don't exist. And if that doesn't exist, why do brands exist? There's no brand if there's no gym. There's no superstar athlete if there's no gym. There's no tournament if there's no gym. It is the cornerstone of everything that we do, and that's why it's the most precious. But here's why it's the most fragile. When you start a jiu-jitsu gym, you did not get a Harvard MBA. You started a jiu-jitsu gym because you just love jiu-jitsu. You don't know anything about business, most likely. You just love jiu-jitsu and you want to teach and you want to make this into your life. And then what ends up happening is you start a jiu-jitsu business, and now you are a business owner. Now you have a profit and loss and a balance sheet and a cash flow, and you've got operations and marketing, and you have insurance, and you have taxes and legal obligations. You have all these things. And I can tell you, because I've worked with over 300 gyms at this point. Wow. I've probably been in more gyms than anybody in our industry, that other than maybe an athlete that might tour or something. And I've learned the patterns. And as you know, this as a business owner many times over, once you see the big patterns and things, it gets really easy. And so part of what I'm trying to do with these jiu-jitsu gym owners is that I want to give back. I want to help them. And so I've been coaching them on the side for years. I've been coaching people on the side, but I want to do more. And so I'm starting to do more outward coaching that's like bigger. But with this, we're going to take all those proceeds, and I'm going to read every single one of these entry forms. And there's a part in there where you tell us your story. Why should your gym get this cash infusion? I'm going to read every single one of them, and I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to just call them up and try to get a hold of the head instructor and go, hey, I'm going to give you this much money. Why? Because I appreciate you, because we need you, because you're the most important part of what we do. And that I hope that you use this to strengthen your company, because I lost so many clients in 2020 because of COVID. My wholesale clients, my B2B, and it broke me. I was so sad. I'm a very emotional person. I even cried at one point because one of the gym owners, he said, I have to close my doors forever. Yeah. And I happen to know that gym owner, like many others, he was the head instructor. His wife ran the back office, and that was their entire nest egg. And they had children. So I just knew in that email that what he was actually saying was, I now have nothing, and I have to figure out how to support my child. And it pissed me off so much that it just happened in life that I've decided that I'm going to make my mark on jiu-jitsu by helping these jiu-jitsu gym owners get stronger with business, get better with understanding all those lists that I gave you with the tax efficiency and all of this other stuff. And my first penetration into doing that is going to be running this big campaign, trying to get as much money as I can, putting it all together, paying expenses, taking what's left over, and then just boom, I'm going to shove that shit right back into the culture.
Incredible. Absolutely amazing. I love your passion for it. And I hope that I could be of service. And please let me know when this rolls out fully and you make the announcement so I could help re-syndicate the message. And now I know what we could do with the gi. When you send me a gi, I'll send you back $500 towards this program so that we can get it going.
You're a good man, Jordan. You're a good man. That's the first time someone said that to me.
Oh, I got you. Well, I would love to be of service to the project, and Business Jiu-Jitsu is a friend. And please, if you remember, just call on me and I'll promote it and I will support it. And if you ever need anybody who is dealing with some business issues and they need it to be told straight what's going on, I'd be happy to do that. I do that a lot. I don't have a business or clients. I just mentor a lot of people who come to me off the podcast, people who come to me in my academy. That's how it all started, actually. Business Jiu-Jitsu was nice. Young people coming to me with all their questions about business. Not just young people, even a lot of friends retiring police officers and firefighters. Yeah. Some business idea they've been dreaming about.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to hit you up because I'm going to run a virtual seminar/workshop where I teach jiu-jitsu gym owners how to master retail sales. Because I have one client right now, I want to say his name because then everybody's going to go after him. But I have one client right now who owns a jiu-jitsu business, and he did over $100,000 in retail sales just for an apparel that I sell him in his. That's it. So a revenue stream of you can reach $100,000 in a freaking year by doing this. I'm going to do a whole seminar where I get people to you got to get in on this. You can't just have membership and then you occasionally go get a t-shirt every now and then. You got to get it into a cyclical flow. So when it comes time to putting that together, you've got a lot of experience, man. We've been on a similar path, just not realizing it. I can see things coming together.
Sure. Well, if you stay in touch and you let me know about it, I'd be happy to be involved or be a guest speaker, talk about retail, talk about the clothing business, just talk about business generally. As a landlord, I actually have a number of martial arts academies around the country. I have a martial arts academy here in New York, karate studio. I'm very, very close with him. I mentor him. I have a martial arts academy in Texas. I had another one I used to have a jiu-jitsu academy in Texas. He moved, but formed really nice relationships over the years and helped them with all kinds of fundamental business techniques. So that's why this project exists in the first place, to have these conversations.
We're trying to do the same thing. We both love jiu-jitsu, but we both see that it needs help. And that's what we're here for. My life's mission emerged during Phalanx. I didn't know what I wanted in life. I know exactly what I'm on this earth to do now. And this is a part of it. This right here, making a mark and giving back is a part of it. We're always donating. We're always doing that. You can go to our giving back page on the website and you can see a feed of what we've been doing, and we're just going to keep doing more. So I'd love to have you be a part of that. We donate every year. We do four big limited editions where all of the profits are donated. Wow. We do one called the autism. We do an autism one, which that one was a beautiful story in 2020. My God. And then we also do this one here, the United We Roll. Those are the two charitable ones that we do every year. The other two are for profit, but there's a Halloween and a USA. But those are the two that we do every single year, no matter what. We just started the Unity one, but the autism one we've been doing every year. We didn't this year, and I had a bunch of people coming at me. So I was like, whoa, we better do this every year. So now we're going to do those every year. We're going to keep giving product away to people every year or all the time. We constantly doing free stuff. Hit us up. We're just open is what we are. We're not just an apparel brand. We're people. We're people who do jiu-jitsu. We're trying to do our best and put the best stuff that we have out there. And we're trying to help everybody that we can and work together because jiu-jitsu is really just one big family.
perfectly said, and I think we'll end it on that. Chris, like I said, I'm at your service, so please let me know how I can help when you roll these out. And it's been an honor getting to know you, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for your time. It's an honor to speak to you as well. I'm very appreciative of your time.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. See you, brother.